Hey, best friend. Welcome to the call today. I can't even tell you how excited I am to have one of my personal friends on with me today. I like to introduce you to people that I really love and enjoy, and I know that you're going to feel that way about Dr. Wendy Robinson. We teach together. She's also a clinician. She did my MER training, and she's even done her own breakthrough. But even more than that, today we are going to dive into what it actually takes to take action on your dreams and what happens when you release what's holding you back. Seems pretty important, right? Well, let me just introduce you to my great friend Wendy, and she is going to tell you about herself a little bit because she is way more credentialed than I could ever give you enough words for.
Well, hello, my best friend, Dr. Britt. I'm so excited to be on today. I don't know if I have a lot of credentials necessarily, but I think I have a lot of life experience, would
Magical
probably be,
training,
yeah,
epicness.
the real life training. Well, I think one of the first things to know about me is I am a wife to an amazing man named Robert, and I am the mother of four beautiful girls that my husband and I adopted. And they range from 15 all the way up to 31. And I'm also the Mimi for three, two granddaughters and one grandson. And then we have two puppies at the house, really, Oliver and Kenza. So we've got a good full house. As far as like my background in counseling, I've been around, I hate to say, a couple of decades. So I've been in the field of counseling for over 20 years, and I've had the privilege of doing a variety of things from working in a therapeutic group home with girls to the foster care system, being both in the home as well as working with parents who were working on reunification plans and really breaking that generational trauma. And then I worked with juvenile probation for a little while, and probably one of my favorite privileges to work with was our military. And I did that for 11 years, where we took counseling to the installations and schools and really helped bridge some gaps there in our military institution around counseling and breaking down stigma. And I did that for over 11 years and managed over 100 plus counselors worldwide. I even had the privilege of working with like special operation forces and the
Cool.
Marines, and then lately I've just been working as at the university as an associate professor, having the privilege of training counselors, along with a small private practice. And recently I'm launching my own clinical coaching after doing my training with you on mental and emotional release, and hopefully bringing just everything that I've learned and trained in and experienced to the vast majority. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me personally and professionally.
Isn't she amazing? Mom of four, lovingly married. She's worked with veterans and kiddos, and there's just so much. I have
Mhm.
amazing friends. Well, I want you to know, I want you to know her more. And so on this theme of really taking action, of going after what it is that you want, that you say that you want. Wendy, what dream were you sitting on before you took action to join the training and even do your own breakthrough?
I really wanted to start my own coaching business and consulting. I've been sitting on it for a long time. Like I said, I dabble in private practice, but I really just wanted to branch out. I really do love working with people, and yet there was just something really kind of holding me back and hindering me from taking that risk. Is probably a good way to say it on myself until I took the training.
Yeah. Can you talk us through that moment where you realized I have got to just stop thinking about it and actually move?
I think there was a couple of things, to be honest. I think the relationship with you. I think finding safe people that I know have my best interest and that are on my side, my cheerleader, so to speak, and really a conversation with my husband, where he was just like, "I know you can do anything," and he's always been that way. I'm always the one that's limiting myself. It's not him. And it was almost like one day I just woke up and I said, I'm just going to take a risk. Like, I don't want to sit back and go at the end of my life and go, I didn't try on me. Like, I'm always
Mhm.
about everybody else, cheerleading and promoting and encouraging. And I'll sit in that space of discomfort with them. And yet with myself, I think there was just, I had a tendency to just hold back, really kind of out of fear of not being successful. And I know we can get into what that's defined as for me specifically. And just really taking the risk. I mean, that's what I keep coming back to. And I just said, okay. And I just sent the money. That was a big one. When I said that, I'm like, hey, I'm committed. It's gone. It's out of the bank account. And I remember taking that breath going, and
I
for a
did it.
brief moment, Brittany, I have to be honest, I was like, did I just make the biggest mistake? What am I doing? Da, da, da. Can I take it back? And I was like, no, no, I'm worth it. Just take the risk. What's the worst thing that can happen? I
Yeah.
wasted a little bit of money. That's the worst thing that I
Yeah.
worked hard for.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think that's a lot of people, isn't it? Like, especially
Mhm.
when it's tied to money.
Yeah. Well, even the like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I sent the money. It's gone. Can I get it back? Yeah, I think that so many people like feel that of
Mhm,
okay, I just took action. Wait, I'm not sure about this. Like, I think that
mhm,
that's a really common experience, which really is just the unconscious mind sort of running these old programs of, I just made some choices for me, but like, I'm not sure that I'm worth those choices or
mhm,
whatever it is. And so then it starts to just run this old program, uh, to get us to self sabotage, which I'm so
mhm,
grateful that you didn't. And you didn't allow that program, you told that program you're not running. And so, as I'm thinking through this, I'm going, all right, Wendy, I did hear you kind of talk about this belief about success. What
mhm.
fears or beliefs came up for you as you even considered doing this?
I think the biggest part of it wasn't the content, which I told you about. I believe that I'm skilled in the art of like counseling and coaching and that piece of it. It was more of the business, going into the unknown, which
Yeah.
is the business side of it, and not only having expectations for myself. I think other people having expectations of me to be successful, because I think, a lot of times, and I hear this from friends and family members. It's like, you're just so confident, you just have it all together, and I'm like, no, I'm like this scared little child going, please let me be
Mm,
enough, let me be enough, don't let me, no, don't figure out that I'm not enough. And so,
yeah.
so I do think that, yeah, that was a big part of it. And it was like, okay, again, I will say I think some of it is being on the other side of 50, which I am, and I'm proud of that. I'm a half a century plus a few years old. And doesn't that sound so like regal, half a century plus? Um,
Totally.
yeah. So I think it's just kind of part of that too of, I don't want to wake up one day and I'm on my deathbed, so to speak. And I really had this conversation with myself and go, why didn't I? Why didn't I
Mm,
do that? Like, why didn't I take the risk? I mean, the worst thing is I continue teaching. I have my small private practice. Like, taking the risk isn't going to change anything I have right now. Like,
yeah.
all that's still stable, and I'm in a pretty stable place. And so it was just a really good time. But I think really shutting down that, it's funny you call it programming. I kind of call it a gremlin, but it's the voice of lies,
Yeah.
that comes from a lot of that, when you're talking about like the unconscious matter, the programming. Because the reality and truth is, no one's ever really told me I'm not enough. I picked that
Mm.
up somewhere and I've kind of bought into it. And I will
Well, you
also
did
say
anyways.
I did, but I think some of it too is like, that fear can be protection and getting in the way of us moving forward.
Mhm.
But sitting in the known is easy for me. I know for a lot of my clients and people I talk to, than taking the risk into the unknown.
Yeah, there's certainty in that. It's like
Absolutely.
being comfortable in your discomfort. Another way that people say it is like the devil you know versus the devil you don't.
Absolutely. That's a good
It's
one.
well, this stinks, but at least I know that like I know this versus, well, maybe what if it stinks in the future? You know.
Hmm.
So, Wendy, describe, because I'm going to ask you about your breakthrough. I want to talk a little bit about that because it's a part of the process.
Hmm.
How did you feel before your breakthrough? What was your life like, before breakthrough?
Um, I would say in most aspects really well. Like I think I have worked through a lot of things. I told you that. Um,
Mhm.
and I think before the breakthrough, I didn't know. I think that's probably the best way to say it. I didn't know the things that were really holding me back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Because I mean, to myself and to other people, it looks pretty successful and pretty good. So it wasn't until, so it was almost like I didn't know what I didn't know. And I
Um,
kind of knew what I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I knew some of my limiting beliefs and things like that because it's something I've kind of fought with, but like that deeper, more hardcore seed, the deeper root stuff, so to speak. I knew, but I didn't realize, I think, like how much of a charge it had and how much it was impacting, but also impeding my
Yeah.
life.
Isn't that interesting? You're like what I hear you describing is there was this sense that there was more for you.
Hmm.
Like, and you've run into some limiting beliefs or some of those negative emotions, and maybe you wouldn't push for more, but you had a sense that there was more. I'm willing to bet that my listeners have that sense, or at least
Hmm.
have had it anyways, that there is more for them. They were created for more. And when I
Absolutely.
think about that, the purpose is such a spiritual aspect of who we are, who we were created to be, because we were created with a purpose for a purpose. And in some ways, Wendy, you really have been operating in a purpose that God has created you for and going, and I sense that there's more here and I
Hmm.
need it and want it.
I,
Yeah.
I would agree with all of that and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
What was, do you want to add to that?
yeah, I was just going to add, I think too, when you brought in spiritual, I think again, my tendency, and I'm suspect there's people out there that are similar to me, is that when I get into my limitations, I'm also limiting what God's plan is for me,
For
to
sure.
try to keep it in that little safe box that we talked about of certainty.
Mhm.
And then I will also say this: I think because my life isn't bad, hear me when I go with this, right? My life isn't bad. I mean, I've got a great marriage and my kids are, thriving. Not that we don't have our daily struggles and stuff. Again, not bad. It's almost like, well, should I go for more? Do I need more? Like, so I kind of wonder that too of, not being greedy with it almost. Like you've got
Mhm.
this blessed, pretty good life going on. And please hear me, listeners. It doesn't mean I don't have stuff. I have stuff. I just, in respect to, my past and kind of where we've grown and become now. So,
Yeah, I mean, even as you're talking about it, I know it's not now, but it was before where it's like you've got this blessed life. Why are you being so greedy? Why are you wanting more? And yet there's still that internal sense pushing forward, pushing for more. Hey, there is more for you.
mm-hmm,
And that really, I do fully believe that that's that spiritual part of us going, God's got more for you.
mm-hmm,
Mhm. It reminds me of the verse in Ecclesiastes, exceedingly abundantly, God has more for us than we could ask or think. Now, some theologian could go, you're taking that out of context. All right, whatever. And there is a sense internally that there truly is more for us.
mm-hmm.
Wendy, what was your most surprising realization that you had after your breakthrough?
I think it was probably more after kind of just living in life was how charged up I was over things that were so insignificant.
Mm,
So the big stuff, we can justify, we make sense of stuff like that. It was the small things
yeah.
that I was expending a lot of energy on. Um, that now I in my full body, I just experience this peace and this calmness, um, that really helps me to stay one in the now, and then also the energy. that comes with and being able to take the risk and to acquire new information. But that was probably the biggest thing. And if you want, I'll give you the example because
Yeah, give it.
it really is so insignificant. And I'm just going to really show my true colors.
Do it. We're talking to our besties. They like these
I
stories.
know. Well, my best friends have been on the phone with me. They know I have road rage, like not the kind that's like pulling people over and
You
fighting. I'm not one
have
of
or
those.
you had?
I had. Thank you for that clarification.
Mm.
I had. I mean, I would have a full, long dissertation conversation with people in my car about how ridiculous they are, and I mean, you probably feel it now. Like I would get like so amped up. My kids are looking at me like mom has lost her mind. Like the person just pulled out like there's a time when somebody like almost hits you and you have a right to go off. And I'm talking all the time in traffic. Every single time I would be like this. And I would just be so tense and frustrated. And I mean, I am talking at them. If you're on the phone with me, I'm telling you, oh my gosh, what an idiot. What are you doing? You think you're I mean, just going at them like they can hear me. My kids would go, Mom, they can't even hear you. What is going on with you? Since the breakthrough, it's almost like quitting like alcohol or going to the gym every day. I can proudly say I have not gone off on anybody in my car since the breakthrough. And I have been
Wow.
in tremendous traffic and driving with a bunch of yahoos.
Yeah.
That's
I'm,
what I call them.
yeah, fair. They are yahoos. I'm over here wondering. I mean, your daughter has been in the car with you since this. Has she said anything about it? And by the way, Wendy and I haven't had this conversation, so this is new to me. Has
Yeah.
she said anything?
Um, Yes, especially with morning high school traffic, because parents who drive their kids to school for high school, elementary school, I had a lot of patience. Middle school, meh. High school, I'm like, dude, get out of the car, get your kids going. What are we doing? We don't need to have talk. And now it's like I'm just super chill, and she's just like, and it's really funny because my daughter's getting ready to drive and she's like, Mom, I took some of your characteristics, which I'm not proud of, by the way. Mom, I took some of your characteristics. I'm talking to these people when they're driving. I'm like, oh, don't be like me, honey. And she's like, yeah, you have really calmed down a lot. Even more importantly, my husband and I aren't fighting in the car because if he was driving and I was in the passenger seat, I had a whole lot to say about him and
Yeah.
the yahoos that were driving. So marriage just has improved in the car.
I love that. Has he said anything specifically about it of like, "Oh, you're not doing that anymore?"
Yeah, he's just grateful. He's just thankful that he's not getting the attack and the criticism. And it was a lot of criticism around his driving and the criticism of other people. And nobody wants to sit in that. So now I just kind of chill. And it's almost like he's a little on edge, Brittany. And listeners, like, okay, is this for real? Is this a real change? Like, oh, it really is a change. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really and again, that's the most. It seems so insignificant. However, I'm in my car every day. I'm in
Yep.
traffic every day.
I love
So that's
that.
been
Well,
probably the most like in my face change. And I would just say in general with work, with things that before would really charge me up negatively, things that are out of my control, what other people are doing, I just kind of sit in and then go, okay, do you? And I'm gonna sit over here and do me.
yeah, it's
And
powerful.
that's not mine. So
Hmm. So, what Wendy's really talking about is what happens when we release our baggage.
mm,
Because baggage is whatever the emotion, the experience we're having now, which is, oh man, this person is an annoying Yahoo, can't drive. Then you add all the historical baggage that was full of anger, and if we're talking about road rage, all having these long dissertations with people, when in actuality all of that was baggage. It's just like, oh man, this knucklehead doesn't know how to drive, and then you just kind of move on, or you're just, or even more so, you're just kind of like, meh, whatever, no big deal. Like, that's a picture of the baggage free reaction to that moment, right?
yeah. And I'll add a little bit to it because there's so much meaning attached to something so insignificant. And for me, it was like a justice issue. It's a disrespect. Like there's all kinds of stuff negatively that was coming up with that. And the person just doesn't know how to drive very well. I mean, that's the
Yep.
reality. But
Hmm.
that's how it would charge me.
I love that. I
Yeah.
want you to see that's such a picture too of baggage, right? This person that
Mhm.
doesn't even know you, that not a good driver, unaware, whatever it is, that somehow this person is personally
Yeah.
disrespecting you when really they're just trying to get to wherever they're going, driving however they drive, and
On
nothing
their
about it
phone.
was personal. Yep, on their phone.
Mhm.
Nothing about it was personal. So as we're talking about this, I mean, this is powerful. While it may seem like something small, that starts to translate into the rest of our life. Those other areas. Have you seen any Have you seen any other ways that releasing these negative emotions or limiting beliefs has impacted your ability to show up for yourself, family, or clients, students, whoever?
Yeah. Yeah, taking risk has probably been the big one for showing up for myself. And as you know, this week I not only did I launch by announcing it, putting it out there, so now there's accountability, but also doing social media. And it's really kind of cute. My 21-year-old is like, "Mom, it doesn't surprise me you're on there. You're so outgoing." But I realized I don't like the attention. I don't like the potential of being judged and not being enough. And this week, Brittany and listeners, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get out there. And let me tell y'all, videoing yourself, not easy, kind of cringy at times. Um, and then I started having
That's how
fun
you
with
know
it.
she has a teenager. She just said cringy.
I say cringy, but it's so much fun. Like I
Mhm.
have people that I haven't talked to in forever. I've got strangers making comments, and I'm like, and it's not a validation thing. It's just entering into that world and sharing things that are important to me and connecting with people who also. Well, that was a limiting me because I was afraid that people
Mhm.
would judge me, not see me good enough, not worthy to be doing that. Who is she to be doing that?
Mhm.
And the reality again is I've only limited myself because everybody, at least that I'm aware of, if I am not aware of it, I don't care. But everyone's cheerleading. They're supportive. They're so excited.
Yep.
And it's like, here's what I want people to hear though. Because I was limiting myself, I was also limiting people from coming alongside me
Yep.
and not only celebrating me and my and these next steps, but just being a support, being able to be a part of something that's important to me and being
Mhm.
able to build me up. And we do that when we limit ourselves. And it's
Yeah.
so funny. It's like preaching to the choir, right? We teach, I teach, you teach our clients how to do this, and yet I need to live it out myself. So I think
Listen.
my breakthrough helped me to just kind of release baggage, and then also just those limiting beliefs, right? Around, and it doesn't mean they don't creep up because they do. The gremlins still have their moments. However, I'm so much more aware of them that they don't have a lot of authority and power.
Well, that's a picture sometimes of just old programming going
Hmm.
like, "Hey, by the way, you used to think this." But the Wendy that I know, by the way, would not have at all before breakthrough, would not have all not have man, my words are not coming out. Would not have taken action. There we go. On
Hmm.
doing social media and
Oh
in
no.
that way in any way was purely a consumer, would never have posted anything. And so now here she is being willing to post something, going, you know what, I'm going to take this risk, and then doing it.
Hmm.
Because we talked about before you decided to learn, we talked about how stuck you felt on any of the social media, the marketing, any of those sorts of aspects.
Hmm.
And so now you're like, yeah, I'm just going to do it. And then I did it. And then it really wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be, which is such a picture of what anxiety does in our mind anyways, is it makes up this story, most of which the things never even happen.
Hmm. And it does also, it projects onto people that they're going to respond a way when we don't even give them a chance to
Mm,
see what's going to be true.
true that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That happens in a lot of aspects of life. And yeah.
Yes, it does.
Hmm.
So, Wendy, after I mean, you've done all these wonderful things, and that you're taking action. Did you feel did you feel an identity shift? There we go. After your breakthrough.
Yeah, I would say so. I think the identity is shifting definitely spiritually to really kind of sit more freely, if that's the right word, and taking the risk that I believe that God's calling me to do instead of limiting in that relationship, which again was the launch this week because I don't even have my stuff together. I had a friend ask the other day, it's like, well, do you have your processes? What processes? What are you going to be doing with this? I don't know. I'm just taking steps and taking it one day at a time. And so I think the shift too is yes, there's a little bit of looking into the future, but there's a lot more of letting go of control and yet taking steps and just
Mm,
enjoying the moment. I don't even know what's going to come of it, to be honest with you. And kind of right now, I don't care. Like I'm just like, okay, we'll see. And it's just
yeah.
fun and stimulating and energizing. And um, yeah. So I don't know if that's all that you're asking, but yeah,
Yeah.
I do experience the shift and just that peace and freedom to be more authentically me.
Well, that's powerful. Being able to be
Well,
more
isn't that why I'm on?
authentically you. Yeah. Yeah. Being able to be more authentically you is really you being the version of you that was really there all along, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you're talking about like how peaceful that feels, really, to be able to just be yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so many people, we see it, we're humans, so we've experienced it ourselves also, is that a lot of times people don't take action on the things that they know or want to take action on because they get stuck in, well, I have to have every single possible step ever planned, which by the
Mm-hmm.
way, if you own a business is impossible. But I have to have everything possible ever planned, and then they don't even take action because one cannot ever possibly have every single step. A lot of times you figure out the next step as you took one, and then you're like, oh, yep, that's it, that's it, that's it. Then you get to somewhere and you're like, oh, that the road needs to fork. The road
Yep.
forks here, and I need to go a different way that would have looked totally different than the plan that I had created.
Yeah, I think that what I hear you saying there too is that flexibility and adaptability to, improvise or to make the shifts. And from a control person, which again, I think that was a lot of my baggage, is trying to control every aspect, which limits me. And again, I know a
Mhm.
lot of people out there, that's a big piece of it. So when I keep saying freedom, like there's a freedom to exist, there's a freedom to be in this day, this moment, and go, okay, I'm going to record a video. I'm going to put it out there. Oh, that was cringy 12 times later. Or, what's really cute is my daughter's friends liking my TikToks and stuff. And here's these 15 and
So
16-year
cute.
olds trying to promote me. And I'm like, yeah, there you go, my four,
They got
but even though,
moms,
yeah,
dads, other people. They know people.
yeah. And I want to say something. We've talked a lot about how things have worked well. I'm going to back up just for a second with you,
Do it.
Brittany, and share. I don't even know if I shared this with you, how skeptical I was of the actual breakthrough itself. Because again, as a control person, right, releasing things that are in the unconscious, it's like, we'll see. Like again, I took steps in faith, trusting you, believing in the things that you were doing and who you are. Um, However, if I'm really honest, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is going to work. This seems at times a little heebie, and it's like it works. I,
Yep. The woo
Sometimes I
woo
sit and
works.
go, did it really work? And I'm like, oh, it did.
Hmm. Wendy, I appreciate you saying that so much because I did know that you, maybe not to the extent, but I did know that you were skeptical because it took you a hot minute to take action on it. We had lots of conversations. You'd ask more
Mhm.
questions. And so I knew that there was some skepticism. And you had even said to me, my husband encouraged me. And at the end of it, like it, whatever, at least I learned something new. So I knew that that was there. But what I love that you bring that into the room because so many people, when we think about these methods, feel skeptical. They're like, I don't know, that seems a little woo woo, or could something really work like that? And the answer is yes. I've experienced it. You've experienced it. I have 100 plus clients that have had that experience of, wow, something has really shifted in my world, which is huge. And it's
Mhm.
rapid and it's fast. And that's part of the part that makes it even, you know, kind of unbelievable or where you can have some skepticism about it because it's like, well, I've thought these things for a long time. How can something that just takes a few hours get rid of that?
Right. And I would like to add too, it doesn't become like this Pollyanna fake thing either. Like there is a true like change. There's a
Yeah.
shift. And I think because it is at the unconscious level, it's hard to describe it and understand it unless you've done it.
Yep.
And then what I really love about this approach, and that's kind of where I'm at now, it's like the commitment to take the steps because, I've worked with thousands of clients over the last couple of decades. And, you know, often people, and including myself, we want change, and yet we don't want to take action. We don't want to create the discipline that's necessary to, this is a springboard. I'm releasing all this. And now, okay, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that I'm excited to work with people about. I know that's what you're excited to work with people about, but helping people to get the release and then be able to go, okay, now I have the capacity to create because I have the freedom of the stuff that's not
Mhm.
holding me down and creating this false narrative, this false story in my life. And mine's with business with this one, but again, interactions on the road, engagement with my kids, my husband, like it's, we focused on this one area and I can see how it's just like, these little roots are being developed and recreated in other areas of my life.
It's so powerful. It's so powerful when we
Mhm.
do this and we just go, okay, it really does work. And now I'm empowered to take action. That's the reason that people don't take action, that being that they've got baggage, that they have these unconscious beliefs or feelings that are running below the surface, that when they get close to something that they do actually really want, that it gets sabotaged in some way. And your unconscious mind, I just want to be clear, is not intending to work against you. It thinks it's helping you because a lot of times those beliefs are protective. Like, see, if you don't try anything, then you can't fail. And if you don't fail, then you'll still believe that you deserve love because if you're a failure, no one can love you. Like those sorts of things. So the unconscious mind really does think it's protecting you. It's not trying to harm you. I just want to be very clear about that. But we run into those, we run into that and we want to move away from that. And that's what the breakthroughs do in that MER process.
Mhm.
Wendy, have you had any moments where like doubt tries to sneak back in? And if yes, what do you do?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's just part of life. I think that for me, I'm spending a lot more time just kind of journaling and just really trying to stay attuned to. For me, I believe the body is also sending those kind of signals that, hey, there's some stuff coming up that needs attention and may or may not be true. And so, the more calm and relaxed I can stay in present, the more I can assess those things. I would say also consulting with others. We don't have to do this alone, and really we shouldn't be doing all this alone. Um, and so, the people in my life that I'm very safe with, and just processing. A lot of times, there's revelations and awareness and insight gained. Um, and I do think just the reinforcement, like when the doubt starts, I'm like, okay, well, just take the risk and see what happens, right? Like
Hmm.
again, I think it's really kind of conquering the um, the catastrophic. That's a big old word, like that word. Catastrophic, outcomes, which again are just not true for most things. Like, yes, they can happen, but it's a very small percentage. And so I have been kind of having dialogue with myself too, like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I get on Facebook, for example, and nobody likes my post. Okay, well, that sucked. And I don't know that I might jump at it tomorrow. However, maybe I do. Maybe this one didn't resonate, or so I think the way I look at it is very different when doubt starts creeping in, and not personalizing it like the driver we talked about. Like they got their own life. They're distracted with their phone. It has nothing to do with me. Guess what? I'm not really that important to them. It just happens to be in my lane. So, yeah. So I think just really combating it and being aware that it can happen, that it's kind of like a root, right, in your yard. You put down the root killer, and then that there's a little root that comes up. Well, you just got to take care of it. Don't let it
Yeah.
grow. Don't let it become. So,
Yeah, and then you have those tools, right?
mhm.
Mental and emotional release is not something that's just done one time in a breakthrough session. It's like after you've completed a breakthrough session, you really do know how to do it. So if
Yes.
you have something sneaky, like there's a teeny tiny root, you just go, "Cool, I know how to get up on my
Mhm.
timeline and release that." It's so empowering to know that when those doubts do try to sneak in, or old, baggage in a different way, it's like, cool, I just need to get up on my timeline and release it. And I've been doing this for a bit, but I'm like, I absolutely practice what I preach. Sometimes it's funny to me when I'm working with my coaching clients and I'm like, so when's the last time you got up on your timeline? And they're like, maybe
It's been a
maybe
minute.
it's been a minute. I'm like, you need to use this. I'm happy to do it with you, and we're going to release it right now, and you don't need me."
Mhm.
And that's and like I think too, it's like that's the goal, right? To work I'm always working myself out of a job, which I think I have the
Amen.
coolest job, to work myself out of a job. So,
Mhm.
Wendy, what would you tell someone who's thinking about doing a breakthrough or making a move or going after their dream, whatever that is, but they just haven't taken the leap yet?
Um, Not to sound cliche, but it is a cliche. It's kind of like I texted this the other day. It's like Nike. You just do it. Take the
Hmm.
risk on yourself, and step out. Again, I think it was who's the guy who owns Amazon talks about this. Like,
Jeff Bezos.
yeah, he talks about, and I don't know if people like him or not. I don't care about
Who
all that stuff. So
cares?
don't come at me.
Who cares?
But he talks about that. Like when you're 85 years old and on your deathbed, you never look back on life and regret anything that you tried, but you will look back and regret the things you didn't. And so I think that's really kind of stuck with me. Just, the chances that we don't take on ourselves, there's always that potential for regret, and you probably will regret it, instead of just
Hmm.
going, hey, what's the worst thing? It's like, okay, I spent a little bit of money, got to make it up, or I spent a little bit of time. And then I think too, looking at stuff like that too, everything's a growing and learning opportunity.
Yep.
Even if this doesn't work out, even if I've grown, I've changed, and therefore it worked. And I think so often our expectations sometimes can be so um, limited, another
Yep.
limiting belief that it has to be a certain way, instead of maybe being open and curious about just kind of where life is going to take you with, taking that risk on yourself, and just kind of embracing yourself for the ride.
Yeah. Well, we're worth the risk.
Yes.
If we don't take risk, it is because there's something in there running around underneath the surface that says, I'm not worth it. And we are absolutely worth it. And so sometimes you just got to drop kick those beliefs and say, I'm taking action. And that's really what tells your unconscious mind that you want it.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the four requisites of change. And I've talked about these in another episode, but the third requisite of change is one must take action. You have to take action on what it is that you say that you want. And then the fourth is being mindful of the evaluations that you make of your life, because they become suggestions to your unconscious mind. And I'm going to take action because I'm also worth it.
Mm-hmm.
If you speak fear over yourself, or I don't know if it'll work out, well, most likely it's not going to work out, because you're already setting yourself up for all the ways to see all the ways that it's not going to work out, versus, yeah, I'm totally worth it and I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
take action. And, if something doesn't work, I'll just pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And really saying and believing that in yourself is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love all of that, Brittany, and then just adding that curiosity piece.
Mm, it's all about curiosity.
It is, isn't it? Like, I think we limit ourselves so much for me, trying to control things. And yet, when I'm curious and I'm just sitting in that space, almost childlike, it's like good things happen and fun things happen. And, like you talking about that pivoting most of the time in my life has been really good.
Hmm. It just didn't seem good when you had to do it.
Right.
Because either there's feedback or a learning lesson from it, or even the outcome of whatever, wherever you pivoted to, turns out way better than it was before.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's,
that gratitude and gratefulness, being able to look back on it. And so I guess I would encourage people to start there. Be grateful for the potential pivots. Because
mm,
again, if you look back on our life, like you're just talking about, that is usually where we grow the most and become the
yep.
most, when we go through that season of pivoting.
Well, from a NLP perspective, all of that is a pre-frame. I'm
Yep.
pre-framing myself because I know that it's going to happen anyways. That life is full of changes, of pivots, of
Mm-hmm.
the plan did not go as planned. It did not execute in the way that I thought it would. And it's so much better than it was before. Yeah, so much better than it was
Mm-hmm.
before.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So, Wendy, what is next for you now that you've stepped into this? I don't want to say newer version of you, like just really standing more in who God created you to be. What's next
Mhm.
for you now?
Um, Doing more of this,
Mhm.
doing more of just putting myself out there. I mean, even doing a podcast, I guess, kind of brought a little bit of doubt maybe up. Um, I wish I would have remembered to get on my timeline for that one. Um, but yeah, I think just doing more, just taking the risk, seeking people out, taking the action that I committed to, even going through the training that I was going to do for myself, and um, really kind of setting out what it is I want and taking steps, and hopefully staying really curious and enjoying the ride. And I look at this as it's another chapter of life. Each one I get better, each one I grow and become, and I'm really excited to see what comes from it. So just keep
I'm
stepping.
I'm excited for that for you too. So I'm going to ask this question to you. Wendy, who is it that you really, as you're taking this next step in your coaching business and utilizing breakthroughs, who is it that you really want to work with?
I want to work with, honestly, women like me who are professionals that are still just limiting themselves, based on that old baggage. And yet to the world, they seem like they're doing really well.
Mm,
And yet it's just not quite freedom. It's just not quite, um, all that they are authentically, wanting and just becoming just fully themselves, and really breaking down a lot of those limiting beliefs and releasing that. Um, I didn't really know that until you just asked me that question, because I've been kind of pondering, trying to chunk down what's my niches
you've
or
been
niche,
talking about
depending
that.
on where you get it. But yeah, I really want women like me to be able to go. There's so much more
Mm,
that I can, not only that I can be, I can serve and do and become and show younger generations, which I love being the mom of daughters, because that's what I'm creating and I'm equipping, and yeah. So,
So if I could encapsulate that and like a nutshell, my girl Dr. Wendy over here wants to help high achieving women really become more of who they were created to be.
hmm, I
Did
couldn't
I
say
get
it
it?
better myself.
Mhm. Well, Wendy, I'm going to ask our listeners a couple of questions. It's kind of my normal. And I really want you to think about, listener, bestie, what's been holding you back? As you're listening to us talk about taking risks, the first question is, what's been holding you back? The second question is, what risk do you know that you need to take? And then the third is, what action are you going to take today towards that dream, that thing that you need to take action on? Well, Wendy, So good to be with you today. Thanks for hanging out with me on my podcast. And besties, I always love for you to meet some of my real life, hang out with, speak to besties, and to gain their wisdom and knowledge. So, Wendy, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, blast. I like to hang out with my friends and just talk.
Me too.
All right, until next week.